Hey, this is Dave from MetalEpidemic.com. Thank you for checking out our YouTube video. Please feel free to hit the subscribe button below if you like this type of content, and we hope you enjoy the review. What's up, guys? Hope everyone is safe and well. Thank you for checking out our review. For this review, Duncan Kyle and myself have been checking out the new album from Death Doom Quintet, Pulchra Morte. The band's new album, Ex Rosa Ceremonia, will be released on November 6th via Transcending Records. So, this band is actually made up of members of Skeleton Witch, Eulogy, Abigail Williams, and Wolfhammer, and only formed in 2017, with the idea to rekindle a feeling that has become increasingly scarce in the dense landscape of extreme music today. The formation of songs containing weight, atmosphere, and feeling. Ex Rosa Ceremonia will be the band's second full-length album. The album was produced, engineered, and mixed by the band's guitarist, Jarrett Pritchard, at New Constellation. It was mastered by Mayor Applebaum, who has worked with Faith No More, Halford, and Sepultura at Mayor Applebaum Mastering, and features cover art by Brian Sheehan. We have a guest solo from Jay Fernandez from Brutality, guest vocals from Heather Dykstra and Andrew Geraghty from Wolfhammer, cello courtesy of Nara Strakosh, not sure if that's pronounced right, sorry. And backing vocals,
no, history, Dave. No, it's not.
We're Scottish. And backing vocals provided on the first track, The Serpent's Choir, by an absolute shitload of different artists, including members of 1349, Black Tusk, Immolation, Gwar, Abysmal Dawn, and Exhumed, to name a small handful, but there were many, many more. Okay, so now that is out of the way, let's chat about this new album. So this was another new band to me. I'd never heard this band before, although after hearing who they're involved with, I noticed I had heard a few of their other bands. And one of the first things that kind of hit me on this release was the kind of distinctively old school, almost kind of vintage feel of the production, especially around the drums. And once I started doing a little bit of kind of digging on the band, I found out that the drums were actually recorded to analog tape at Earth Analog Studios, and then the bass, guitars, vocals, and cellos were done at New Constellation RPM. I quite like the fact they went down this route with the kind of analog tape thing. It's a kind of huge tick in the box for me. I love bands that go for a kind of more analog sound. It has a very kind of organic kind of feeling to it. The album I was listening to, actually, it felt very 90s at times. I kept kind of putting in mind the albums that I'd listened to from that kind of decade or era. But don't get me wrong, like a slick production or polished production works very well for certain bands, but I think this type of production, it helps almost like kind of capture like a band's character. It really suits a band like Pulchra Morte. I think their blend of death metal and doom, I think it works so well because it has that like almost kind of grain and like kind of dense atmosphere coming across in the recording, and I think they nailed that. But as we know, having a great production does not mean shit unless you have the songs to back it up.
I'm sure that is the rule, Dave.
That is.
A wise man, Sun Tzu, before he wrote The Art of War, said that very sentence. Quoted. 201 BC.
Excellent. Thanks for the quote. I think they do back it up. I think they sound really. I felt like they sound really seasoned. Like this is only their second album, but for me, when I was listening to this, it sounds like a band that have been together for a lot longer than 3 years. And I know there've been other bands and stuff like that, but this album sounds very well put together. And if I hadn't read that they'd only been on the go for 3 years, I'd have said this was a band that had been like honing their craft for at least like a decade or so. I think musically, these guys they've definitely got a fondness for bands like ParadiseLost, My Dying Bride as well. This is an album that's kind of filled with big, kind of weighty riffs, with a huge kind of dose of like gloom on the side. Vocally, I actually quite enjoyed this. Duncan, what did you think vocally? I know you're a vocal man. What did you make of Adam Clemens?
Yeah, he's got a great tone. I think it completely suits the style of music as well. It's less catering towards the doomier, sludgier aspects of their sound and more into the kind of blackened style of it. But I think that works well as a contrast to the guitars themselves, which I think overall in the release lean more towards the doomy, sludgier side than they do towards the blackened side. So they cross over at certain parts, which is really interesting. But yeah, vocally, there's some bits where I was like, you are ruining your voice, that scream sounds like it hurts, but in the best possible way. I think, especially when you're combining those elements, those specific musical styles together, the vocals really do need to be something as abrasive as possible. I actually really enjoyed the guest appearances as well, the guest vocal appearances on here. Thought they added a bit of texture. It doesn't surprise me there's like 100 vocalists on the first song. When you were reading that out, you remember that nauseating video that did the rounds on YouTube, like at the start of lockdown, where all these Hollywood actors sang Imagine out of key, and John Lennon shot himself again in his grave, just like, fuck it, what that, I will end it twice, double tap. I just got this idea of all these kind of Goar and shit like that, and I imagine now, it's just like doing the feed the world thing, you know what I mean? It's background to no. I think vocally it's really interesting, nice and strong, and it works. Once again, maybe not the most unique sounding vocals, but in terms of the tone, it's perfectly pitched.
Yeah. I thought I liked his the kind of deathy growl that he had. Again, it felt very 90s with the reverb and stuff on it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like, it's not just like a kind of constant kind of bark from me. It also has this kind of softer side as well. And he comes in with some kind of nice clean tones. There's some kind of like melancholic kind of melodies on tracks like Knife of the Will. And I felt those parts kind of really lifted the band's sound to the next level. He actually, on that track, he had a bit of almost like a Burton C. Bell thing going on that track.
There was a little bit of the C. Bell.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it, but it was cool. But it's not to say this album would have been bad without the clean vocals, because I actually liked the album on a musical level as well. I think the riffs were actually one of my favourite things about this release. For me, there was at least one moment in each track where a riff really stood out, or even just like the choice of chord progressions they made, where I wasn't quite expecting a track to go a certain way. There's a moment on that first track, on the Serpent's Choir, where they pull this like Crowbar-esque riff out of the bag, and I was just like, I totally stopped what I was doing to listen to it. It hit me out of nowhere. And I think because of those little like changes and different elements, I found it quite an interesting album to listen to. I wasn't bored at any point while I was listening to it. Kyle, what about yourself? What did you make of Pulchra Morte's second album?
Pass. No, it was. It's not my favourite thing I've ever heard, if I'll be honest. It's I don't know. You're talking about the clean vocals and stuff. It was like the clean vocals actually worked better for the guys, I think, than than the blackened, harsh, throat-destroying vocals he was doing through most of the album. It was like, I can definitely hear that's hurting. If it's not hurting, then congratulations, because that is a new technique I've never heard of before. But I really did like the clean stuff. Like when they did that and it was more melodic, it was like, that's where they should probably stick to, is what I thought. And like, I don't know, it felt like 100 other bands that I'd heard before, and it was not really that much new for me. It was like, okay, it had the sludgy stuff and the blackened stuff, and it was like, cool, this is a band. At least they played well, and the songs were well constructed and well written. It wasn't like there wasn't too many themes, or there wasn't any themes or variations or anything that were like repeated too much through the album. Everything was like, okay, it's definitely this song. And I liked a couple of the intros that were more like mellow and rose up, and they built some stuff up, and I thought that was quite interesting. But all in all, I was like, not really my thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Duncan, what about yourself?
Interesting choices.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part here, there's a lot that I kind of dug out of it. Like, we've spoken about this before, maybe in the last month or so, when talking about like bands that incorporate blackened elements without being like distinctly black metal, which is a genre. If you're getting the kind of non-plus response from Kyle, a la this release, that would be the kind of non-plus response you would get if it was a black metal album. It's not really my thing. It's not anything I overly feel invested in. Every black metal album I've ever liked, the black metal community fucking hates, which is usually a good indicator that I'm not a black metal fan. But blackened elements, when used correctly against other genres, I think it works better as opposed to being independent genre itself. And as a result, the elements they add here are excellent. I really like the riffing. I'm with you on that one. I love the guitar tone. I thought some of the riffs were, at times, I could just feel my head getting into it. I enjoyed the vocals, how they sat. I do have one issue, and I'm not going to labour this point at all, and we've all spoke off air about this, and I might be the only one that necessarily has the issue to the level or degree that I do, with maybe Kyle thinking maybe there is a slight issue, but maybe not as much as I think, and Dave disagreeing with me completely. The snare drum sound I disliked quite a bit, and I obviously, like, as history will dictate, I do not read anything about any of these bands at all. The reason behind it generally is I try and the artistic reason and not the bullshit reason is I tend to find that, like, with press releases that come out, if one or two bands are mentioned, I then end up mentioning them in my review because someone's told me, and I don't like that. I like to try and make the connections myself. I tend to be that I can't pick the part of the world the band's from at all. But I can usually pick out influences that I go, oh, it sounds a bit like this, or it sounds a bit like that, without necessarily taking it from someone else's pen. And I didn't know about the kind of analogue drum recording. And what's kind of stood out for me is the rest of the drums sound great, but for whatever reason, I genuinely thought there was like an electronic drum being played here with some sort of filter on it. It just sounded very compressed. Didn't ring out at all, but in a way which just sound, it was weird to my ear, is the best way I can describe it. And as a result, the longer the album went on, that was I had almost like a laser pen focus on it, and it started to distract me in a way which it's the only way I can liken it to. And I actually love the snare drum sound on Saint Anger. I fucking love it, but I know a lot of people cannot get past that. They'll not talk about the riffs on that album, they'll not talk about the vocals, they'll not talk about anything except the fucking snare drum, right? And Pulchra Morte, to me, I can appreciate the things they're doing here. The snare drum, to me, almost ruined the release. I genuinely don't know what it is, and like kind of rim tabling it with you guys, it appears to be a Duncan only issue, and I don't know why that is. But yeah, I listened to it twice, and the second time through, it's all I could hear. It's all I kept focusing on, and it became quite disheartening because there are bits on here where the snare isn't playing, and the music's fucking brilliant. And some of the intros that you were talking about, the thing when they were talking about bringing back that old feel of atmosphere, this album has that. It's fucking great. It's an extra element that I love about it. The drummer is good. The drum production, specifically on the snare, in my opinion, isn't. So that's all I will say about that. But yeah, musically, I loved it.
Cool. And it's weird because I thought, like,
you're the drummer. If anyone, I was like, Dave will back me up here.
If there's someone that wouldn't like it, it would usually be me. But I honestly had no issues with the drums at all. And it didn't even cross my mind. The snare drum never even crossed my mind. I like that old kind of analog style recording. It appeals to me, so it didn't even cross my mind. But I really enjoyed this. Every time I listened to it, I liked it a little bit more, and there was something else I would pick out of it. Even like tracks like Prince Among the Shadows, which it starts very slow. It has a very kind of brooding kind of intro that you were talking about, and I thought it was going to be one of those like typical kind of breather tracks in the middle of an album where nothing much happens, but around the kind of 2 minute mark, they totally change it up and they switch up the tempo, which kind of catches you off guard. And then that track ended up being one of my favourites. Just a really great mix of rhythm and pace, really engaging. And again, very reminiscent of Crowbar in certain riffs as well, which is never a bad thing. But I loved the Archer and the Noose. It's the one where they have the female vocal, kind of pairing it up with Adam Clemens, which I thought was a great idea. I thought the two vocal tones together really worked wonders, and I wouldn't be against them adding more of that to their next release. For most of the album, they balanced the genres pretty equally, but I did enjoy when they kind of tipped the scales ever so slightly on occasion. I thought tracks like To Suffer the Way You Do, although it still had that kind of doom-like pace, I liked when they pushed the riffs more towards the death metal territory. Again, for me, it was another clever choice from the band. It doesn't, let things become too repetitive or predictable. There's a great solo on that track as well, actually. It's very, very dexterous, but it still manages to keep that like melancholic feel to it. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I can see myself going back to this release quite a lot. I thought it had a ton of depth, a lot of atmosphere to it. Personally loved the production, and it kept me engaged for its entirety. So can't ask for much more than that. Rating wise, this is going to be interesting. Where we're all sitting on this one. As I said, I really enjoyed it. I'll kick us off. I would go 4.5 on this one.
3.5 for me.
3.5.
And Kyle?
I'm going to go total middle of the road. Inoffensive 3 out of 5. I mean,
okay.
It wasn't awesome, but it wasn't shit either. So
okay. Nice.
Not awesome, not shit, says Metal Epidemic. Right along the bottom.
Great quote. So a very mix of scores on that one. Let us know what you think when you hear the album. It drops on November 6th on Transcending Records. The album is called Ex Rosa Ceremonia. You can check out the band online at facebook.com/Pulchra Morte. I'll put a little link in the description below so you can check them out. And check out the album, let us know what you think. Put a comment in below. Thanks for checking out our review, much appreciated. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care and we'll speak to you soon.
Bye everyone.
Bye.